Well, good morning again.
Good morning.
That's the wellness check. Are you with me? Are you awake? So there you go. Now it's good to be back. We are again in the book of Habakkuk. We will be here until we're finished again. I blame Dick and thank him all the same time. Now, it has been a great suggestion. I've thoroughly enjoyed the study of Habakkuk, or Habakkuk, however you pronounce it. It's a fun name in the Bible. There's so many K's. My goodness. But it's a good book to read, and it's even applying it well to our lives in our current circumstances as well. Just want to recap what we looked at last week. Part one was, does he see? Does he hear? And in short, yes, God does in fact hear you. Yes, God does in fact see you. He knows you and he cares for you. The big takeaway from that week really was cry out to God. That he encourages us to actually question him. God, why am I going through this? He encourages it because when you speak to him, that's where we find the answers. Unfortunately, we talk to everyone and all sorts of things, but we forget to talk to the God of the universe who created all things. So question God, he has all the answers. This week is part two. Those guys, really. We'll explain that later on. In verse 2 through 4, Habakkuk asked God a question regarding all that he saw going on. And if you recall, he saw violence, iniquity, wickedness, destruction, strife, contention, lawlessness, the wicked outnumber the righteous, and justice perverted. So he saw some pretty terrible things in his own nation, and he was distraught, and so he cries out to God. He complains or he questions God. Then verses 5 through 11, God answers him. God shows him in a vision what is to come, mainly that the Chaldeans, which are the Babylonians, are coming to chew bubblegum and take captives. Unfortunately, they didn't find any chewing gum. They just took captives. So, the key ingredient of questioning God is to listen to his answer. You know, it's funny. We've got a mechanic at State Road, and he's a huge man. I mean, he terrifies me if he ever got angry. Luckily, he's pretty chill. But other than Corey, you ever throw a wrench at a customer? And he smiles and he goes, I want to know, but you wanted to, haven't you? Like, yeah. When you question something, you have to wait for a response. You know, when you drop your vehicle off to get fixed, you don't call on every half hour. You fixed it yet? You fixed it yet? You fixed it yet? Nope, sure didn't. It fell off the lift. Wouldn't you know it? You know, man. You don't pester him. So when we question God, absolutely question him. But then you must wait for his response. So we have to question God, but we also have to answer it. Now, upon hearing God's first response to his complaint, we have verse 12, which is Habakkuk's proclamation the prophet makes. Let's go ahead and read there, Habakkuk 1:12. Are you not from everlasting, O Lord, my God, my Holy One? We will not die. You, O Lord, have appointed them to judge, and you, O Rock, have established them to correct. So the verse is kind of a rhetorical question. He's not actually, are you? No, he's like, you are. He's just asking it in poetic form of a question. God, you are awesome, more or less, paraphrasing here. I don't understand what or why, but I know what you said is going to come to pass because I've seen it and I believe it. And that's really what we're at. Is like, he doesn't get it, but he's like, I trust you. I love how MacArthur notes it here. He says his reaction to the perplexing revelation is to declare his confidence in the Lord. You know, it's fun, attack life as the confidence of a toddler with a stick as a sword, right? Like, have that same level of confidence in God that you can conquer the world. Just like a toddler thinks they can conquer the counter until they fall down, but that's okay. Now, in Genesis chapter 15, we see the story of God speaking to Abram. Before him was Abraham, his name was Abram. And God says something in that it kind of just blows his mind. And in verse 1 of chapter 15 says, do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. Okay, God, I hear you, but there's always a but. It's like a pharmaceutical commercial, right? Could help you, but you might die. Anyway, Abram questions God. God, I get it, you're going to bless me, but how? Because anything you give me, I don't have any inheritors. In fact, my servant who's from Damascus, that guy's going to get everything. So God, why would you bless me, or how are you going to bless me if it's not going to benefit my family, but my servant's family? So God gave him something, and he questioned, like, how? How? Let's read here in verse 4 through 5 there in Genesis chapter 15. We get God's answer. Then the word of the Lord came to him. This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. He took him outside and said, look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. Then he said to them, so shall your offspring be. I know I get blamed for having lots of kids, but I saw this video clip this week and I thought, oh, what a perfect thing. So I don't have this many kids, okay? Read this. Let me check this to you. There's a TV recording about 1958 of a 102-year-old man. They're trying to guess his age and he can't get around to it, but he finally says, yep, 102. Well, I suppose you have a lot of kids now as many years. Well, yes, I do. I've got 7 girls and 9 boys. See, I'm not even close, all right? 16 kids. Now, I had one person type in like, there's still time. I'm like, shh. There's not a bus that big right now, okay? Oldest is aged 82 at this point in his life, and the youngest is 36. My goodness. 69 grandkids, 39 great-grandkids, and 19 great-grandkids. That's 144 people, by the way. Been married to his wife for 70 years. Obviously, he passed, but, you might not be able to look out at your whole family who fills the entire church and count them all because they're moving around probably. And it's not the size of the stars, but nonetheless, you would lose track of the sky. So God has made this huge promise to Abram. Like your descendants, the people that come after you, will be as numerous as the stars, and you won't be able to count them. So Abram, who God later changed his name to Abraham, which is signifying his father of a great nation, he didn't understand how God was going to do it. But he believed. When someone says, I guarantee I'm going to have that slab poured by the end of the week, and you go, good luck, buddy. Sometimes they make it, right? Well, God has promised something so much greater to us. I will give you all the things I have promised you in this. Believe. And that's exactly what Abram did. He believed God. In fact, in verse 6 there in Genesis 15, Abram believed the Lord, and he credited to him, God credited to him as righteousness. Abram was not the only one in the Bible we can read about that is given a promise by God but didn't understand it necessarily. We all know the story of Luke chapter 1. It's the famous pre-Christmas story you talk about, right? Gabriel comes and visits Mary. He's like, hey, congratulations, you're going to be a mom. And don't worry, it's God's kid, and we've already picked out his name for you. Huh? I won't give you the whole bit, but there is a really funny millennial Bible verse of this. I'll just share a little portion of it for you because you're not millennials. But more or less, Gabriel gives this proclamation to Mary, and Mary goes, how can that be since my body count is 0? She's a virgin. Okay, sorry. So she understands that it takes 2 to make 1 more, right? So she understands, and so she questions God, like, God, I know how math works. 1 plus 1 equals 1 more. Technically 2, but you know what I'm saying. How did she respond? After Gabriel explains it all to her, kind of like Abram. In Luke chapter 1, verse 38, I am the Lord's servant, Mary answered. May your word to me be fulfilled. Then the angel left her. She didn't understand the mechanics of it all. She just understood that, well, what God said through Gabriel was probably going to happen, so sign me up, Sometimes we're told how the clock works. Right? So here's gears, and they all enter manual, and you twist it, and then click, 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 right? I would lick my watch, but I don't know where it's been recently. It's a Timex. So it takes the lick and keeps them ticking. Oh, come on. Anyway, other times, we're only told that there is time, right? Like, hey, the time is about 5 minutes till 11. That's the time. Other times, we're told, hey, there's going to be a time at some time in the future, but you won't know the time except for when it shows up on time. Right? We're given these things, but we're not always told the explanation of it. Habakkuk knows that God is telling the truth. He believes him because he has seen it in vision form. That God will accomplish the word he has given us. But this still leaves some questions in Habakkuk's mind. Have you ever asked a question and received an answer and you go, I have more questions, right? Like we've all been there where like, that's a great answer. Wow, that's more questions than I thought I had. Same thing with Habakkuk. If we look at Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 13 to the end of the chapter, we get his next question. Your eyes are too pure to approve evil, and you cannot look on wickedness with favor. Why do you look with favor on those who deal treacherously? Why are you silent when the wicked swallow up those more righteous than they? Why have you made men like the fish of the sea, like creeping things without a ruler over them? The Chaldeans, also known as the Babylonians, bring all of them up with a hook, drag them away with their net, and gather them together in their fishing net. Therefore they rejoice and are glad. Therefore they offer a sacrifice to their net and burn incense to their fishing net. Because through these things their catch is large and their food is plentiful. Will they therefore empty their net and continue to slay nations without sparing? So that concludes the second question, because he had some more questions. He more or less saying, he's like, first question, hey God, what are you going to do about my nation, your nation, that are being terrible people? God's like, well, I'm going to bring the Chaldeans, and they're some nasty folks. Really? Those guys, God? You know, it's like when you take a test in school, and the teacher's like, well, the high score is Bob. Bob eats glue sticks. What do you mean he got the high score? You know, like, I studied for 3 hours last night. Same thing. Habakkuk's like, those guys, seriously? Have you seen their track record? They're wretched people. Like, why are you using them? Well, verse 14 through 17, Habakkuk is reminding God, hey, just in case you forgot 2 minutes ago, God, these people are scum of the earth. Why are you doing that? And then we got God, he already told him, like, look, I know there's some nasty folk, right? Verses 6 through 10, he says, yeah, there's some bad guys. They are bad guys. So Habakkuk is a bit distressed at the instrument of God's choosing to bring about correction. Right? You're like, God, what are you doing about all this violence and terrible things? I'm going to bring a really big ugly stick, bud. That's about no overreaction, right? Nope. God was going to do what he's going to do. So he's a bit distracted. He's a bit distressed. Yes, the Israelites are acting wickedly, and they absolutely need righting. But the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, they're so far worse than I am, aren't they, God? And so he's got these questions for God. And again, it is okay to question God. But here is the real big point of it. MacArthur's notes here. In light of their reputation, how could God have unleashed this ruthless force upon another helpless people? God, I know that my nation is bad. Why would you use such a wicked people as the Chaldeans or the Babylonians to correct us? God, they're so much viler than we. You know, we get into that habit, don't we, sometimes? We can see other people's blatant sin, and we go, they're worse than I am. Feel pretty good about myself, right? How stupid of us. Like, we all receive the same amount of grace. Some get it more often than others, but we all have to receive grace because we've all fallen short of the glory of God. No sin is greater than the other. And when I was reading this, I was like, oh man, there's a verse that reminds me of this very conundrum we have about God. And it's found in Isaiah chapter 55, verses 8 through 9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. You know, we are created in time and place. We were created, we were born in such and such a date, at such and such a place. Now, we may move around in place, but I think a majority of you haven't gone very far from home. And that's fine. Actually, I think I'm the one farthest away from home, honestly. But I met a woman from Illinois, you end up in Illinois, that's how that works. We don't understand the workings of God because we exist in time and place. God, thankfully, exists from beginning to end. He is infinite. He is everlasting. There is no beginning and end. God is eternal. I am really, really grateful that the guy who's controlling everything knows how it ends and how it started. Amen? Like, that he is smarter than all of us combined in a lot of change. I am really grateful for that because I mess up my day-to-day life. I couldn't imagine if I was in charge of all the time because I'm not that smart. I'm grateful that God knows all that his ways are above mine because God sees how it all works for the good of his name. So he asks this question, so he understands that he is below God and he must seek God for his answers. And so I love verse 1 of chapter 2 of Habakkuk. I will stand on my guard post and station myself on the rampart, and I will keep watch to see what he will speak to me and how I may reply when I am reproved. I want to read it to you from the Message translation. What's God going to say to my questions? I'm braced for the worst. I'll climb to the lookout tower and scan the horizon. I'll wait to see what God says, how he'll answer my complaint. More or less he's saying, God, I've got some serious, deep questions. And I know you hear me, so here I'm going to wait for your answer. Do we have that same level of faith? Do we have the same level of faith that says, God, here are all my hard questions, and I'm going to stand right here, and I'm going to look for your answers to come. God, I'm in this situation. God, I'm in this circumstance. God, I'm in this failed job. God, I'm flailing like a fish out of water. Are we willing to wait for his answer? Are we willing to cry out to God and then patient enough to hear his answer? Are we quiet enough to listen? In the case you need some more proof of the importance of waiting on God's response, I've got a whole bunch of passages for you. I'm going to take a break because it's going to be a long bit. Psalm 27:14. Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. Isaiah 40:31. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Lamentation 3:25. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, the soul who seeks him. Isaiah 30:18. Therefore the Lord waits to be gracious to you, and therefore he exalts himself to show mercy to you. For the Lord is a God of justice. Blessed are all those who wait for him. Psalm 135:6. I wait for the Lord, my soul waits, and in his word I hope. My soul waits for the Lord more than watchmen for the morning, more than watchmen for the morning. Psalm 33:20 and 22. Our soul waits for the Lord. He is our help and our shield, for our heart is glad in him because we trust in his holy name. Let your steadfast love, O Lord, be upon us, even as we hope in you. Exodus 14:14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still or wait. Psalm 37:34. Wait for the Lord and keep his way, and he will exalt you to inherit the land. You will look on when the wicked are cut off. Psalm 62:5. For God alone, O my soul, wait in silence, for my hope is from him. Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. Isaiah 64:4. From of old no one has heard or perceived by the ear, no eye has seen a God besides you, who acts for those who wait for him. Psalm 135. I wait for the Lord, my soul waits, and in his word I hope. Proverbs 20:22. Do not say, I will repay evil. Wait for the Lord, and he will deliver you. Genesis 49:18. I wait for your salvation, O Lord. And pay attention to this one, Psalm 37:7. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways, when they carry out their wicked schemes. We have to wait. Sometimes we see other people succeed, and guess what? They're not in a race. They have their own things coming. Now, whether they are righteous or unrighteous, it doesn't matter. God's plan is perfect, and it's tailored, designed for you. It's not who gets across the line first. It's that everybody crosses the line at some point. The race of life is to eternity, not to the finish line of whatever we're chasing. Don't fret when people succeed in their ways, when they carry out their wicked schemes. I hope that Habakkuk remembered that psalm when he was sitting there waiting for God. When he says, I'm going to stand right here, God, I'm going to look at the horizon, and I'm going to wait for your answer, because, God, I know that people will only succeed for a time before you bring about justice. God more or less says this in Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2 through 3. Then the Lord answered me and said, record the vision and inscribe it on a tablet, that the one who reads it may run. For the vision is yet for the appointed time. It hastens towards the goal, and it will not fail. Though it tarries, wait for it will certainly come. It will not delay. I love that the Hebrew language has a lot more meaning than what we're getting here from the direct translation. More or less, God is saying, make a super large print. I want a billboard with this vision answer to your question on it. I want people to be able to jog by and be like, oh wow, yeah, God did say that. That's what he's saying. I want it big print. I love the Message translation again. And then God answered, write this, write what you see, write it out in big block letters so that it can be read on the run. This vision message is a witness pointing to what's coming. It aches for the coming. It can hardly wait, and it doesn't lie. If it seems slow in coming, wait. It's on its way. It will come right on time. God is usually never on our time frame, right? God, I want it here. I want it now. Why isn't it here? Amazon said it would be here in 2 days. It's been 3 years. God, it's been 30 years. It's been whatever. We live in a culture that personifies like immediacy, right? Everything has to be now. It has to be perfect. It has to be on time. And if I don't like it, I'll just send it back and get another one. God is not Amazon, thankfully. God says, what I have for you is far greater than what you can receive in this world. Wait for it. In prayer, we ask God for things, or we ask God for help, and God will give us 3 responses. Yes, no, and sometimes he says wait, which is almost worse than no. We have to question God, absolutely. That's the first thing we need to know. Cry out to God. God, why? How? Who? Ask God. And then secondly, wait for him. I wish I could say that and believe it and do it as easy as I can say it. Because I tell you what, waiting on God is hard. Because your loved one's hurting, your loved one is dying, your loved one is suffering, whatever it may be, and you just want God to get busy right here, right now. But sometimes God's like, this is for my glory, and it is for the bigger picture. Just wait. Let's pray. God, I thank you and I praise your name that you hear us. God, so often, God, we ask for things flippantly and then we don't even listen to your response. God, give us the courage to take your response in stride. That, God, you will sometimes say yes. And oftentimes, God, when we've asked for things and you've said yes, we go, oh boy, what did I ask for? God, sometimes we ask for things and the answer is a flat no. And God, give us the strength. Because God, sometimes I swear we're all toddlers. We kick and scream and say, why? Why no? I want it. But God, you know what is best. God, give us the patience to do what is best for your kingdom. God, sometimes you say wait, and God, we are not a patient people. God, with everything in our life being so fast and right now and immediate, God, give us the patience that you require of us for your glory. God, help us in our walk with your Son. God, guide us. God, correct us when necessary. God, we thank you and give you praise that you hear us. God, we ask of you. Now, Father, we also ask that you help us to wait for your response. Father, until you speak to us or you call us home or you bring home to us, God, find us faithful. We ask all of these things in Jesus' holy and righteous name. Amen.